Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey. In today's video, we're going to take a look at my team selection ahead of Game Week 5. So, as it's been an international break, it's a pretty good time to remind ourselves how I got on in Game Week 4. So 75 points normally would be a pretty decent score, but it's disappointing to get a red arrow going into the international break. The averages around the FPL community and FPL in general were really high last week. So down to 957k, a little bit disappointing, but overall I don't think it's a nightmare. I think it's a good enough position to hopefully start propelling myself up to the top 100k soon, and I think I'm still relatively well set up for the weeks ahead. Onana in goal was a frustration. 0 points again. That's the second consecutive week where he's got 0 points, especially frustrating with Turner on the bench getting 5 points. In defence, Chilwell got taken off around the 60-minute mark yet again. That's the second time this season. Could that be a little bit of a frustration moving forward? Do we need to start thinking about whether or not Chilwell is worth it in our teams? I think for now, probably is. He's still playing left wing, but like I say, he is getting taken off around 60 minutes, so it could be a little bit of a problem. Udogie was the only return again in my back three. 5-pointer from him, just the assist, no clean sheet in that 5-2 win over Burnley. Estupiñán didn't keep the clean sheet yet again, and the attacking returns for him have slightly dried up a little bit, so I'm starting to wonder just how essential he is in our side, especially considering Brighton at the moment are coming into a pretty rough patch of fixtures. In the middle, 4 out of my 5 midfielders returned. Rashford, Foden, Saka and Maddison all got a single return to their name. Obviously, none of them went big, and I think that is partly the reason why I didn't get a green arrow this week. There were a few bigger midfielder returns, especially Mbumo getting 8 points with high ownership did punish me greatly. So 4 out of the 5 boys doing okay. Sterling getting a blank, but his fixtures ahead are still looking pretty good. Up front, 40 points for Erling Haaland. What else can I say? Hat-trick and an assist. Not bad returns whatsoever for him, and he looks like an absolutely essential pick at the moment. The same can't be said for Ollie Watkins. 2-pointer for him. Again, a little bit frustrating. Until now, he has been at least returning, even though he hasn't scored so far. And 2 points from him was a little bit of a disappointing return for him, and the fixtures ahead aren't looking too great either. So he might be another player that I'm willing to get rid of in the next few weeks. On the bench, like I mentioned, Turner 5 points, Saliba 2 and Kabor 1. None of them I was really considering starting. Turner was the only one that was a little bit frustrating that he got more points than Onana. But overall, I don't think there were too many decisions I got wrong on my bench. So I'm pretty happy overall with the side. Little bit frustrating to get a red arrow. But now let's take a look at how I'm set up for the next game week. Right then, so starting off in goal, and I am going with Turner over Onana this game week. I think Brighton at home is a pretty difficult fixture for Onana. He might get a few saves out of it, but Brighton are an elite attack at the moment, and I do expect them to score, if not score quite a few goals overall. I think that's going to be a really good game. It could be a 3-2, 4-3, that kind of game. It should be a bit of a ping-pong match. Whereas Nottingham Forest against Burnley, I think, could hopefully be slightly lower scoring. And at home, Nottingham Forest are a pretty decent side. They made it into a bit of a fortress recently, and Burnley at home represents a decent chance of a clean sheet. There is a little bit of a worry that Turner is going to lose his place eventually with the new signings coming in. But I think for now, it looks likely that he should stick in the side, in the starting 11 for now, until he makes some sort of large mistake. So I'm pretty happy to start him in Game Week 5. If the worst thing happens and Onana starts, it's not an absolute nightmare, but I would prefer to see Turner in between the sticks against Burnley at home. In defence, I've got Chilwell, Udogie and Saliba to start, with Estupiñán on the bench. Estupiñán away at Man United. I think attacking returns are fairly likely, but I don't think that those represent a better chance than the clean sheets opportunity for Bournemouth away for Chilwell, Udogie at home to Sheffield United, or Everton away for Saliba. I think Saliba is the one that I might be arguably tempted to bench instead of a Estupinian, but Everton away from home is a pretty decent chance of a clean sheet. Even if Saliba has no attacking threat, I'm still relatively comfortable starting him ahead of a Estupinian now that his attacking returns have slightly dried up a little bit. It could easily punish me though. We know a Estupinian can assist or return against anyone, so let me know in the comments below if you think that that is a bit of a mistake. A doggy at home to Sheffield United, that's a good chance of a clean sheet and an attacking return, so I really like the look of him. And Chilwell away at Bournemouth, hopefully he starts in the left wing position again, but if he doesn't, if he can start at left back, I think that will be good for him moving forward, and I think he'll get more minutes. Overall, I think that he is a pretty decent hold for the time being, but Chelsea's fixtures do dry up around game week 9, I think, so I will be looking to move him on around then if he doesn't start getting 90 minutes more regularly, and if he's still not getting those attacking returns that he's flirting with at the moment, but not really pulling through those returns just yet. On the bench, like I said, I've got a Estupinian and then Kabore. Against Fulham away, again, not a bad fixture, but Fulham are pretty decent going forward, and I can't really be starting him ahead of any of those three on the pitch at the moment. So a lot of the players I want in FPL at the moment are in the midfield, but looking at the 5 I've got at the moment, I think I'm pretty happy. Brighton at home for Rashford seems like a really good opportunity for attacking returns for him. If he's playing off the left, which I do believe he'll continue to do so, he's looked so much better there, and I think the way Brighton's set up, a lot of teams do try to target that left flank or the right hand side for Brighton, and I think Rashford could have a lot of fun there, especially if Højlund's starting up front as a target man. That will draw a bit of attention away from Rashford. Hopefully he can sneak in behind as well and get a few attacking returns there. Foden at West Ham, I think he's the player that I'd be most willing to get rid of at this point, but I'm still pretty happy with him overall. He is flirting with attacking returns, a bit like Chilwell in the previous section, but he's not quite getting those big hauls just yet, and I'm starting to wonder whether the balance of risk versus reward is a little bit off with him, whether or not we're going to get those big returns in the games that he is starting in, and he does seem to be starting a lot of games at the moment, but rotation around the Champions League will probably come in eventually. Is he going to get the hauls consistently enough to make it worth our time to sacrifice the minute security that we could be getting from other players? I'm not so sure at the moment, but I don't think he's a desperate sell. Against West Ham away isn't a bad fixture, and then Nottingham Forest at home in game week 6. I think it's a pretty decent hold at the moment. Saka away at Everton. Again, he's been a little bit frustrating recently, and Arsenal fans, some of them anyway, are starting to think that maybe he isn't quite at his best right now. But Everton away is a great fixture. He's still a great player, and he is on penalties. So I think he's a pretty decent hold for the time being. A few people are looking at selling him for Son, and I can completely see why. But I think for me, that just spells a little bit of danger. Everton away seems like a good enough fixture to hold him, and I don't think I'm that tempted to sell Saka for Son this week anyway. Sheffield United at home for Maddison. That might be one reason that I'd be able to resist getting Son in this week, because I've got Maddison in my side. He will probably be my vice-captain this week as well. I think that's a fantastic fixture for him. Sheffield United will probably implement a bit of a low block, and Maddison, being the artist, the creative flair in that side, will hopefully be the one that drifts into those spaces, gets those pockets of space in and around the box, maybe gets the shots away from outside the box as well, and I really fancy him for a pretty decent haul in game week 5. And then Bournemouth away for Sterling is a pretty decent fixture as well. He flirted with points yet again last game week. He was very unlucky not to get the assist with the Jackson missed chance, that absolute setter if you remember in the second half. So I'm pretty happy with Sterling moving forward. He's getting a lot of penalty box touches at the moment, I think more than any other player in the league right now, and their fixtures for the next 4 game weeks are still looking really good. So overall, I think he is a player that could frustrate us eventually if he doesn't start returning soon, but I still have faith in him and I still like him for the game weeks ahead. So up front, and I'm not going to mention Erling Haaland too much yet again, West Ham away I think is, from a captaincy point of view, not the best fixture, but considering it's Erling Haaland, he can return against anyone. I think in this exact fixture last year, that was his debut for Man City in the league, and he got 2 goals, even against a pretty good defence. So he can score against anyone. I still back him to get a decent enough haul against West Ham away. And I think the only player that I'd be tempted to captain this game week ahead of Erling Haaland, if you had him, would be Son Heung-min. I think if you had Son this week, against Sheffield United at home, even against that low block, he would arguably be a better captaincy shout. But because I would probably need a -4 to get to Son, and I'll show you what my option is for doing that transfer in just a moment, I think unless I can get to Son, Haaland is probably going to be the one with the armband for me. Maddison at home isn't a bad fixture against Sheffield United for captaincy either, and he will be my vice, like I mentioned. I think Haaland can have those explosive returns against pretty much anyone, and I don't really want to back against his effective ownership when I do actually think that he is arguably one of the best captaincy shouts anyway. He will be my captain. Watkins at home to Crystal Palace. Now, on paper doesn't look like a bad fixture, but Crystal Palace have been very, very good defensively, not just this season, but also if we look back to the start of the Hodgson era, at the back end of last season as well. They have been really tight at the back, so this could be a little bit of a red herring for Aston Villa. It might be a tougher fixture than maybe some are thinking it might be. So Watkins could be a player that arguably could be moved on in my side this week, and I'll let you know in just a second what I might be looking at as a bit of a forward planning move. But again, I don't think he's an essential sell right now. I don't think he's a player you need to be getting rid of, and he's still playing for a very attacking side, and he is still going to be their talisman moving forward. So I still don't think he's a bad player to hold on to for the time being. However, if you're being aggressive, he could be one that you're willing to get rid of. So as I mentioned before, I am pretty happy with my side ahead of Game Week 5, so there's a good chance that I roll the transfer. However, there are a combination of aggressive moves available to me that I actually don't mind the look of, and please do let me know in the comments whether you prefer me to roll this week or maybe attack the fixtures directly ahead of me and look at bringing in Son for a -4. Now, the -4 I'm looking at doing is Foden out for Son and Watkins out for Carlton Morris. Now, this might look a little bit strange on paper. Foden is a great asset, and Son, even though he's a great asset, is a little bit more expensive. It would require that -4, which in a single game week isn't easy to pay off. However, I do think there's an argument to be made that Son is going to be a much more explosive FPL asset in the coming game weeks than Foden will be. Foden might tick along with 1 or 2 attacking returns here or there, but Son looks like a player that could get a brace or a hat-trick in any given game week at the moment. And even though I don't think he will do that every week, he won't have the same game week he did against Burnley every week, for instance, but he does look like a fantastic asset and fantastic value for money, considering it looks likely he's going to continue starting in this new position up front for Spurs, where he's going to be much, much more effective. And we know that he's a proven goal scorer. He's got a golden boot to his name. He's got multiple 200-point finishes in FPL as well, so we know that he's going to be an effective FPL asset. It's just whether or not this is the game week to bring him in ahead of what is arguably not a great run of fixtures after Sheffield United. It would more be for this immediate game week and then game week 8 against Luton, with those Arsenal and Liverpool fixtures sandwiched in between. He could exploit those high lines and he could have a bit of fun, but I don't think those are ideal fixtures for him, whereas Foden in game week 6 goes up against Nottingham Forest. So it's a pretty difficult move to make, and to do it, I'd need to take the -4. Now, Ollie Watkins has been frustrating, but he has still gotten 3 attacking returns so far, and am I willing to sacrifice him for the likes of Carlton Morris at 5.5 million for a side that aren't going to score too many goals? Well, Luton do go up against some pretty good fixtures in the next 2, Fulham and Wolves, but the big takeaway is that Luton now have that double game week in game week 7 against Everton and Burnley. Now, those are a really good set of fixtures for a double game week, and a lot of people are going to be flocking to Morris for that double game week in game week 7 alone. However, the 2 fixtures ahead of us are still looking pretty good. If Luton score any goals, it looks pretty likely that it's going to be Morris that is scoring them, and he's on penalties as well, which we can't say for Ollie Watkins. So I think it is a downgrade to take Ollie Watkins out and bring in Morris now, but is the upside potentially worth it to bring in Son instead of Foden? I'm personally not sure, especially for a -4. I think if I had 2 free transfers, I'd be more tempted to do it for free, or potentially even bring in Alvarez instead of Morris. But I think that feels a little bit more sideways. Alvarez doesn't have that double game week in game week 7. So I think that could be not so worth it. Maybe for free transfers, I'd be able to do it. And maybe that's a move you're looking at making. But for a -4, I'm not 100% sure it pays off. And moves like that in the past have come to bite me, where Foden and Watkins could easily get decent enough attacking returns in game week 5. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the aggressive move versus just rolling the transfer and maybe biding my time to have those 2 free transfers in game week 6, where I could be looking at manoeuvring other players around, maybe bringing in Brian Mbeumo, for instance. This could be maybe a move too soon, maybe a little bit too aggressive, but do let me know in the comments below what you think of the moves. So there you have it. That's my team selection ahead of game week 5. Please do let me know in the comments below if you've got any of your own questions or dilemmas ahead of the deadline, and I'll try to answer all of them before we hit the game week 5 deadline. In the meantime, please do remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you've enjoyed the content today. It really does support me, and it also means you won't miss out on any future content as well if you do subscribe to the channel. For now though, I wish you all the best of luck in game week 5, and I'll see you again next week on my channel as we prepare for game week 6.